Let's go Dolphins! We are counting down the hours to see the next chapters of our beloved green and orange team. The Miami Dolphins need to race against time to take advantage of the best opportunities in this draft and start the season with full force. I dream of seeing the Dolphins playing in a Super Bowl. With our current situation, I know it seems impossible, but it doesn't hurt to dream that at least Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel can take us to the playoffs. Speaking of Grier, I promised my sister that I won't talk bad about him anymore. In the end, this guy's dismissal is not in our control. We just have to pray and ask God to enlighten the Dolphins. Okay, enough of this chatter. Let's get to the news. But first, hit the like button if you really want to see Chris Grier out of the Miami Dolphins. If possible, right, out with Grier. Okay, I'll stop. Let's go. Let's talk about the offensive line, because for the Miami Dolphins, it's no longer just a concern, it's a critical issue that must be addressed now. With the 13th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft staring them in the face, fans and analysts alike are focusing on one pressing question. Is LSU's Will Campbell the real solution to Miami's offensive line struggles? Now, let's get this straight. Fixing the offensive line isn't a casual offseason goal. It's the difference between playoff success and falling short once again. So let's dive into why Campbell is getting the praise and what he actually brings to the table. Will Campbell entered the 2025 draft cycle as a consensus top 10 player. We're not just talking top 10 for offensive linemen, top 10 overall for any position. But the conversation around him is fascinating because while he played left tackle at LSU, most evaluators, including the Dolphins' own draft minds, see him as an NFL-level guard. And that's not a criticism. It's about maximizing his skills in a system like Miami's, where his lack of elite wingspan and certain technical flaws in pass rushing sets on the edge won't be as exposed. What stands out about Campbell is his blend of raw power, anchor strength, and athletic mobility in the run game. He's a people mover. When he's tasked with displacing defenders between the tackles, he shines. And the beauty of Miami's wide zone scheme is that it thrives when interior linemen can get to the second level, seal off linebackers, and create those explosive runs we've all been begging to see more of. Well, Campbell checks that box emphatically, and it's not just scheme fit, it's projection. On Kyle Crabb's board, a top evaluator and Dolphins draft analyst, Campbell isn't just a top 10 player overall. He's also a top 10 fit when grading players specifically for the Dolphins scheme. That means in a room full of offensive line prospects, Campbell's tape screams compatibility. Whether it's working combo blocks, handling power schemes, or reaching out in wide zone, the guy can do it all. Just don't expect him to be a prototypical tackle in the pros. And yeah, there's the old Dolphins philosophy, they won't draft a guard that high. We've heard it. We've lived it. But Krabs makes a compelling argument. History says one thing until it doesn't. Other franchises have broken their own rules when the right player is on the board. And if the corners, defensive linemen, and quarterbacks are gone, are you really going to force a pick at a lesser position just to avoid taking a guard? Or are you going to take the guy who could be a tone setter for your offensive front for the next 10 years? Let's be real. The Dolphins signed James Daniels, a legitimate upgrade at one guard spot. But penciling in Larry Borom at the other? That's a leap. Borom might be serviceable, but there's uncertainty in terms of position fit, performance, and long-term value. You can't bank on that when you're trying to compete at the highest level. Then there's the alternatives. Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas? Good athlete, good potential, but he's got flaws in pass protection and balance that don't magically go away if you kick him inside. The comparison to Austin Jackson isn't accidental. Banks flashes, but he's still raw. Moving him inside doesn't solve everything. It might actually compound the issues, which is why Krabs grades him as a late first or early second rounder. That's a significant gap compared to Campbell, who is ready to be an instant starter inside and elevate the run game from day one. Tyler Booker from Alabama is another name in the mix, and on paper, he sounds like a perfect guard. Big frame, physical, elite power in the trenches. He's built for inside runs and duo concepts. But there's a catch. The Dolphins don't run a power-heavy scheme like the Rams under Sean McVay did when they shifted to bigger interior linemen. Miami's bread and butter is still wide zone and athletic movement, and that's where Booker gets exposed. His ability to climb to the second level and maintain blocks in space? It's modest at best. He doesn't fit the recipe the Dolphins are trying to cook. He's a square peg for a round hole unless the Dolphins completely overhaul their offensive identity. And that's what it all comes down to, fit. We're not just shopping for a big guy who can block. We're shopping for a player who fits exactly what Mike McDaniel's offense needs: mobility, intelligence, power, and the ability to get out and lead on the move. Well, Campbell might not be a flashy pick, but if you want to talk about building a long-term, sustainable offense that can protect Tua Tagovailoa and reinvigorate the run game, he might be the smartest pick the Dolphins could make. So Dolphins fans, the question is this: Do you want to keep swinging and missing with patchwork solutions? Or do you want a foundational player who can give this offense the kind of balance and protection it desperately needs? Well, Campbell may not be a tackle, but if you put him between Connor Williams and James Daniels, you might just have the best interior line Miami's had in decades. But I want to hear from you. Should the Dolphins break precedent and draft a guard at number 13 if it's the right fit? Is Will Campbell the guy who can finally fix the offensive line? Or would you roll the dice on a different position and hope for value later in the draft? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if you're still not sure whether Will Campbell deserves to be that pick at 13, let's put it into perspective by comparing him with the other names floating around in the offensive line conversation. Not just based on hype or highlight reels, but on actual football traits that matter in Miami's offense. Kelvin Banks Jr. is a player many fans have been drawn to, and understandably so. He's a dynamic athlete with serious upside. At 6 feet 4 inches, 320 pounds, he's got great initial burst, long arms, and experience at left tackle in a high-volume passing offense at Texas. But the tape doesn't lie. There's rawness, inconsistencies, and real concerns about hand usage and balance. He tends to lunge, lose leverage, and can be manipulated by defenders with savvy counter moves. His pass protection isn't clean, and he struggles to sustain blocks in tight spaces. When you're looking at a top 15 pick, that's a red flag. It's one thing to bet on traits, it's another to do it with your highest draft asset when your offensive line has been in flux for years. And let's not forget, you already have Patrick Paul, who showed far more potential than expected when he stepped in last season. Do you want to double down at tackle with another developmental player? Or would it make more sense to plug in a proven interior force like Campbell and build strength from the inside out? Tyler Booker brings a different conversation to the table. There's no question about his strength. At 6 feet 5 inches, 325, he's a mauler. He sets a tone, finishes blocks, and brings the kind of physical presence that could be infectious. But again, it comes back to fit. Booker thrives in vertical run schemes, duo, inside zone, and power. He's less effective in wide zone schemes that demand athleticism and fluidity at the second level. Miami's offense, especially when it's humming, is all about motion, stretch runs, and creating horizontal displacement. Booker's limitations in space, particularly against fast linebackers, make him a square peg in a round hole. And that's not just theoretical. It's been proven time and again that when the Dolphins don't have linemen who can get to the second level and maintain blocks in the open field, the run game stalls. Think about those frustrating 2ND and 8S or 3RD and 1S where the offense got stuffed because the interior line couldn't finish their assignments. With someone like Booker, you run the risk of repeating that pattern, especially if the scheme remains largely the same. But it's a bold move. Drafting a guard at 13 isn't flashy. It won't light up Twitter, but it might finally give Mike McDaniel the pieces he needs to unlock the full potential of his offense, not just through the air, but on the ground. So Dolphins fans, what do you think? Is this the year we finally get serious about the offensive line? Is Will Campbell the right choice at 13, even if it bucks the team's traditional draft philosophy? Or would you roll the dice on a different position and hope someone else can step up later in the draft? Let's hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Would you go Campbell, Banks, Booker, or someone else entirely? Let the debate begin.